Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for more Cosmonarchy, and you're looking at the Askosi, the 4th race, added wholesale, lock, stock, and barrel by yours truly and a bunch of homies that helped. It's IAMtheWHEATofGOD, also known as Godwheat. In the top right, he is our Vermilion Askosi player. And in the bottom right, we've got the classic teal Zerg. It is Grass Eater. This is the I Am the Caster match, by the way. I am the WHEATofGOD. I like to eat grass, apparently. Apparently. Even though actually Grass Eater like typoed his own username, it's now iliektoeatgrass. So there you go. That's try to explain those sounds out of context. I don't know what to tell you. A function has been started, so got we going mech in this game. It is a 9 pool for Grass Eater, so fairly bog standard stuff. He's going to do like pool before Larvosk. Cosmonarchy has a lot of changes compared to StarCraft 1. We're at a Brood War that you know and love, or maybe you don't love it that much, but you will probably love Cosmonarchy anyway. Just try it, dude. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it, even the people who say that they don't wink. The bottom line is that we have a lot of really cool stuff here. 50 units on average per race. You got all sorts of buildings as well, 20 to 30 usually per race. You got a 4th race. You got a 5th race coming. You know, Tier 1 for that race will be deploying. By the way, Tier 1 is like enough units to make a whole race usually in the average other RTS game. You got to keep that in mind as well. And yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really happy that we get to see some qualification matches out of Gauntlet Stage B, because that's what this is. We've got a couple of different stages to our main 1v1 tournament, Acropolis, and this is that qualification stage, that final chance to qualify. We've already seen one player move on just yesterday, a new face to our scene. And now we have some older heads. I mean, Grass Eater's been around for a little bit before Godwheat, as far as I recall, but Godwheat didn't join that far out from Grass Eater arrival. They're from the same era of Cosmonarchy, I would say. Maybe I'm way off on that, but that's just what my instinct tells me. That's what my game sense, my community lead sense tells me. Chantry on the way around Godwheat's structures here, and he did also go for a Radix, so he's got a little bit of play. Scouting on both of the close spawns, a fast expansion from our Askosi player as well, so he is playing maybe a little bit baseline. Ooh, nice little tickle from the Pilgrim. He got like 12 minerals or something. I don't know, not even that much. Basically, when your Pilgrim targets a unit, when it hits a unit, you end up in a situation where your enemy, when it dies, gives you money according to about like a quarter of its worth. Actually, I believe that according to Shopkeeper Dog, one of the Askosi players who's already qualified to the next phase of the tournament, the scrap passive, which is what that is, the Scrap World, Destination Scrap World passive, is a little bit busted versus dual units like this in particular, where you get 2 per egg. It treats it as 1, so you don't get a quarter of 25 minerals, or rather you do. You don't get a quarter of 12.5 minerals, which is what you're supposed to get. So it's supposed to be like 3 or whatever, but yeah. Pretty neat anyway. Definitely a cool passive and something that I'll fix up versus Zerg in particular. But Askosi have been told to be pretty powerful versus Zerg. Let's see what Godwheat wants to do, because he's been a little bit out of practice, and he's coming up against a pretty powerful set of units here. The Quasilisk, a dozen of them coming in to heckle his landlock. See what the attack ends up being with. Has to reveal his cloaked units from the Chantry. Doesn't look like he moved across the map with any of them. And now we have the lines drawn. Had to pick up a phone call, my apologies. We do have, of course, a bunch of Lakas and Zoryas coming. The Shroud has been a staple of the Zerg tech tree for some time now, and particularly Grass Eater, he likes his Bactylisks. He likes his, Hydra-oriented build orders where he starts out with, the pool into den, but a lot of Askosi have a bit of a harder time dealing with like hidden units and such, rather than anything else that you might find out of the Zerg arsenal, at least with the openers that often end up plaguing the Zerg in this matchup. So we'll see what Godwheat ends up wanting to do, but he's doing this interesting little hybrid approach. A bunch of sets pinched off to maybe threaten a counterattack. It does seem like Godwheat reconsiders his aggressive stance and falls back. He also may have cited the need for detection. He's almost done with his Gauntlet, which is going to let him unlock Vicars and Intendants, and now he puts down the Cypher, another prerequisite for Tier 2 units, but also a prerequisite for the detectors that he might be able to field. Some of his own units up here cloaked end up having to try to chase the Zeps around. The object is actually going to get broken down here. So when it's deployed and it's got this like red overlay here, that means that it cannot move anymore. But otherwise, it absorbs a lot of damage. And even when it's deployed, it absorbs even more because it gains more armor and a second life bar. Cardinals are going to heal themselves on these Zets. Not too bad. Only one of them left alive. For at least he can go for a scout through the arsenal of the opponent. Yeah, there you go. Easy enough. Yeah, overall, a fairly steady macro machine here for Godwheat. I feel like he's insulated himself against the attacks when the Lakes are not in the area. The Zerg Wikizilisk, obviously a lurker equivalent here. It's kind of stumping Grass a little bit. Does he want to make more of those? Does he want to scale his economy a little bit? Looks like that's the answer for now. Because I don't think that Grass Eater can just get run over. Askosi units typically require different ways of being effective, different ways of finding success than just straight up power. But Godwheat's going to try to muscle through this. The Cardinals do give them a little bit more staying power in the middle of the fight. Vicars are on the way in pretty good numbers. And the Cardinals provide a heal whenever they hit something, so it's not just to themselves, but to allies as well. This object near to the front of the choke point means that you can just kind of use this as a miniature outpost. The Vicar can also pull the object closer to the grandstand if it wants to, which is a neat little trick. The Cardinal and the Rove can also jump, and when they jump to a target, they end up granting a little bit of healing and movement speed, so it's a nifty little move for all the different ways that you might want it. Power building that ridge cap to increase the yield of the Vespine Ridge. Makes it effectively a geyser as far as the yield is concerned. And taking 12 o'clock with a Pilgrim. Not a bad idea, not a bad move. An Agrolith begins, the Hydrith then comes up. We got 3 more Lakes. A lot of Lakes being made by Grass Eater. He's definitely going to be able to carve through things like the objects with that. Objects sustain damage instead of their allies in a radius, and so the Lakes are going to deal so much splash damage, it's going to overload their systems almost immediately, forcing them to deploy and then probably clearing them after that. Every time you see that blue shield overlay whenever something gets attacked, it's because the object is absorbing the hit. Some Mimics end up consuming a few corpses here. That's providing some armor pen to help deal with the Zorius, but right about now I'm feeling like the Lakes count is probably a little bit too deadly here. Mimics also detect, and you can stand on top of burrowed units to reveal them if you don't have any detectors. I love this spread by Godwheat. He did really well, really quickly on that to make it less likely to quite work out. Tier 2 stuff is available now, so the abutment comes out for the geyser cap, the arch comes out. So clearly some gas-heavy strats being planned by Godwheat as he adds prosceniums. No dyads, unlike what we saw Shopkeeper Dog making. And we have multiple Ovoleths here for detection. It's not just because the Askosi have their own forms of cloak. I would imagine it's also to try to get some good moves done elsewhere, but instead Grass Eater just tries to bisect the army. The Lake is getting jumped on immediately, and their damage kind of spreading around. Here come the Zorius to try to run a little bit of cover here. But the Vicar count has maintained a pretty steady amount, particularly in the north. And that ends up being an unsuccessful attack, well spread by Godwheat. He ends up holding and not being broken. Remember, he's also scaling his economy, but the Zerg just started sending a mouthful of Droleth down here to 6 o'clock. This map, Saberhand, is a port of Blade Runner by Minerals. It's a map that never quite made it to the heights of competition as far as I'm aware. I don't know that it was a part of like any ASLs or something. Or actually, I guess the more I think about it, I think it might have even been part of the season that Flash was random in. So it's just a little bit before I was more actively watching the pro StarCraft scene again. I went through like a lull. The early ASLs, I missed pretty much all of those. But before in the pro leagues I was watching, and then after that I started watching again around the time Solkey started winning championships. I believe I watched the season before his inaugural one. So that was a really weird season with 76 in the map pool and all that. So at least that might be the first one I can remember watching. Anyway, Saberhand, Blade Runner, has some history to it. Whether I'm privy to it or not, I can't tell you for sure. But I can definitely say that it's a cool map. It stuck out to me when I saw some matches on it in the past. And yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and pop it in here. So I ported it some time ago. And it's pretty nifty, pretty gnarly. Grass Eater going to take another main base, looks like, in the bottom left. He's got his Bactyls out. Bactylisks can be a bit of a scare for the Askosi arsenal. And something that Godweek called out in his own words earlier, he was asking for assistance from his clanmates and said, like, hey man, anybody know how you might try to fight against stuff like this? Well, apparently he's going to go for tier 2 air units, the Astrolabe coming out in full force. I feel like his eco is good to start scaling up in that way, sending multiple pilgrims off to the side. He's also going to start getting a lot of extra minerals through this base over here in between his 12 o'clock and his third. Or his 12 o'clock and his natural, rather. No such luck here for Grass Eater, or at least that's not what he's focusing on. He's got a neat little forward outpost with this Hatch and Kagrant that's likely going to become some sort of defensive structure. And, well, it's a good idea for it to come out soon rather than later because the Askosi are on the prowl, and they've built up quite a big force. Aphorists are going to be really good at dealing some splash damage. Remember those Bactylisks I called out earlier, though? The objects can't sustain everything, and most of them are actually dead already. It looks like we got one in the back line, and 2 of them get picked out here on the front. The Ovoleths here to detect. A pretty important unit, actually, for the Zerg to have. The Lake is burrowing on the front line is not really where they need to be. They need to be insurance in case any units start running forward. The Mimics are going to get all but cleaned up, and only one object left standing. It will start to fall. That leaves the Bactylisks free reign over everybody else, but look at this. Godweek trying to step forward. You cut a lot of the DPS out of the Bactylisk if you get right on top of them. More Zoryus coming in to try to make a makeshift front line real quick like. Hydras regressing out of the Bactylisk, more of them coming out of the rally, and that is going to wipe the army. Remember, Zerg have larva mechanics. They can restock their army a lot faster. Maybe that should have been the hint. Maybe that should have been when Godweek turned round. Said, no, I will not continue forward. Even now, we have the Zerg looking around for anything that they can find. Here at 12 o'clock, they site only 2 static defense structures, and they're going to wrap around and shut down this base before it even really gets off the ground. So there will not be any further economic growth besides further saturating the existing bases Godweek already has. He's making a lot of iconoclasts. Now, these are units that haven't really seen a lot of exploration. If you start seeing a lot of, melee air units like Nathracors and stuff, you can get a lot of friendly fire damage from the Iconoclast. You gotta watch out for stuff like that. Because they have the Booming Blast passive that the Vicar does as well. This is a pretty good counterattack timing here, especially with the Mimic to consume corpses and whatnot, but it's all the way down here actually, so it's a little bit far away. The one object helping out as well. Gonna be held at the pass by this little blocker here, the Hatcherosk outpost, catching him on the A move. Here come some more units from Grass Eater surviving from the attack that shuts down that top left natural and is going to clear out the Aphorists. These are not very expensive units at the end of the day. They are mineral only. But the Iconoclast stack is also going to get taken out, surely. They get right on top of the Bactylisk, which is a good move. And the object helps save them at the end anyway. Here comes a bunch of Hydras. They're trying to break through the object. They finally do. But the Vicar, the Aphorist, and the Iconoclast all dealing splash damage. Might be a little bit too much for Grass Eater to handle. He's got a bunch of ranged units up there in the top left he never recalled. That's good move from Godweek to pull the Iconoclast back. They were taking a little bit too much splash damage. Looks like the Vicars will finally fall, and they will be held at the pass. The Iconoclasts moved over here. That's not a base where Grass Eater actually took. Bottom left main is being saturated. This is looking like a pretty cool game. Multi-base gameplay coming out. 4 Aphorists. We've got Vicars coming out in big numbers. I didn't really talk about the Scepter, but it has the same scrap passive as the Pilgrim does. A couple of the units in the Askosi roster have that, where they'll steal the resources of the corpses that they end up attacking a unit for. Pumping out a bunch of Pilgrims now, trying to spend down his considerable bank, and is multi-expanding. Top left again, as well as the 9 o'clock area, 10 o'clock base. Iconoclasts coming in, but they're all getting splattered by the Bactylisks. That's way too much concentrated fire. They don't have the greatest armor count, so they go down. Doesn't look like the supportive units were in the right position. A Mimic all the way in the back, not able to provide any healing or armor pen. Hydrobactyl, once again, being a nightmare here. A bunch of Zets moving to the top left. Now, earlier in the Gauntlet Stage A, where Grass Eater was in a position to qualify multiple times, multiple chances, he ended up not spending his money very well. In this particular game, he's doing a lot better at that, and his opponent is actually having some faltering. Look at all of that. The Zets are a beautiful unit to use in this particular case, tearing down the grandstands, taking the splash damage from the Vicars and the Iconoclasts, and dealing some good damage to what that infrastructure was. Definitely a worthwhile run-by for a bunch of pool units that are dirt cheap, considering it forced the army to pay attention to something that wasn't really giving Godwheat any space on the map. He's going to make a ton of grandstands with all of his money, but he's still got a lot. 1,000 of each resource is nothing to sniff at. Nothing to turn your nose at. And look at that. Oh man, the armor shred on top of that for a little bit of time, courtesy of the Zoryus. When they get hit, they release a little rope for a Broodling that, when it dies, rends armor and slows attack speed. And this is way too much. Way too much Zerg for the Askosi to handle. Only now is he starting to get Doran out, and that feels like it should have been a lot sooner. Even then, maybe the Hydra count would have been enough. But he hasn't really forced Grass Eater to change his style as far as his unit count is concerned and as far as his tech tree is concerned. The Doran do force a change in that respect, but only if there are units still left to support them, and the Zerg are breaking down the gates as we speak. We don't have any detection, so they can't quite get the jump on them, but here come the Doran, and yeah, you can focus them down when there's nothing else there. They're not buying any time for you. Not when it's like this. Scepter will go down despite its second life bar. The grandstand has been knocked over. The one Pilgrim mining dutifully at the mineral only will be killed, and even more run-bys up here probably won't be particularly successful. The Zets might go to greener pastures, but everything has come up Grass Eater here in the natural. Not a whole lot left as the Zets tear down the landlock at the mineral only. The Iconoclasts doing their best to hold back the enemy, but now they're working them down, and there's nothing more coming from these astrolabes. A conduit is on the way. Grass Eater calls out the hash, but I don't think it quite matters, and it looks like it was a spectator anyway. And GG is called. Godwheat knows his days were numbered. Grass Eater happily gets to a 1-0 start after almost 17 minutes. That's a pretty cool game one. I don't know if the other matches are going to quite live up to that, but I gotta say, Grass Eater, a well-deserved victory. Some cool stuff, cool ideas from Godwheat, but he was kind of fighting uphill a little bit there. Not in terms of the terrain of the map, but just in terms of what he was up to. That was not his, not the best use of the units that he had, and he didn't necessarily get to the right ones for what he was facing. The Bestiary came out pretty late. That's the tech structure required for the Doranin. But anyway, cool to see them at the very end, even though they didn't contribute very well. Now, we're going to go to Game 2 and see what else Godwheat's got up his sleeve, because he's going to need a different tact, that's for sure. And here we find ourselves on Gilded Wall for map number 2. A Radix Open will be what Godwheat chooses to bring to this golden map, this golden wall. Don't mind the burp. We got Grass Eater in the bottom right, going for a 6 pool. I love it. I can't wait for Grass Eater to go up 2-0 in the set and then be reverse swept, right? That's how it's going to go. No, I have no actual predictions for sure. But this looks like a Japanese violet. No, it was redwood. Oh my god, I haven't seen that color in so long, and the color filter made me think it was something else. And Godwheat is teal. Teal Askosi, redwood, Zerg. Dude, redwood is a color that I used for one of the Zerg players in Among the Ruins. It was supposed to be one of the player colors for the Hydra maps back when I was making the co-op overhaul of StarCraft 1's campaign. And, man, I am really surprised to see that color again. It does look right on Zerg to me. It tickles my nostalgia organ very nicely. But yeah, there's a slight recolor on this map that kind of brightens it up because it's supposed to be like high noon or whatever for it. It's a neat little high noon recolor I came up with a while ago, and I can't remember if Jujic tinkered with any settings with it or not, but I did hand it to him and said, here you go, this is what I use, because he was asking if there's anything that will make it look a little bit brighter. But yeah, it is a good time to be a Cosmonarch, and we will have one more player join the ranks of the Battlement stage very soon. I guess Grass Eater really wants it to be him. He's doing his patented trick on this map. He did it versus Jack Yelansky and won that map then, and he did it versus Sausage, and he didn't win with it, but he did eventually win that map. So there was something there. There was something to it. A bunch of missionaries coming out here. We'll see if Godwheat can erect a fighting force in time. It's not just the 8 quads you got to worry about. The 2 Zeth do provide a surprising amount of extra power. And now the Pilgrim moves all the way to the bottom right. Is he going to build something? Is he going to make something? He's waiting. He's seeing. He's scouting ahead. He's saying, behold new land. And then suddenly, attack. Oh no, the missionary. Oh no, it's pinned to the wall. Oh god! He knew it was coming and he still got owned by it. Or did he? Did he for real? Missionary count still high enough. Another one gets spawn camped though, and there's one very low guy in the back line there. He's trying to run away. He's trying to cycle back. Man, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to get away from the Zerg here. One left. The Pilgrim's trying to fight. I think he's actually got it. Oh man, he loses all of his missionaries though. That is actually pretty dire. But the one that's left should be able to clean this up relatively easily. He finished the grandstand! Yes! What you do now, grass? What you do now, son? Get grand stood on, dude. A grandstand needs grand feet, and God Wheat has got him. I mean, have you seen the size of that guy? He's like somewhere in between me and Hitman, which is to say he's quite large. What a disaster. Well, Grass Eater's going to see what he can do. Let's see if he can hit him. Oh, he's got the burrow micro. That's pretty good, I guess. Okay. And then he just waits for them to have health again? Yeah, I guess that could work. I mean, it's not like... Yeah, I was waiting for that. I mean, the military units coming across the map had a different idea. But I'm just like, yeah, how's he going to kill the grandstand? You know, like, let's focus on one task at a time, Grass Eater. All right. An amazing follow-up to what an epic game one. You know, like, you know, I think there was a match between... it was one of the matches between Grass Eater and George, I believe, anyway, where George just said, I can't believe this guy's six-pooling me. That's not a strat. And Alexander was relaying this to me because they were in voice during the game. Not all wins in Cosmonarchy are created equal, but they all count the same. So let's just put it like that and move on to map 3. Man, I just can't believe how amazing Game 1 was and how silly Game 2 was by comparison. So maybe this will be somewhere in the middle. We go to Patadia. I didn't even get a chance to thank Jujic for Gilded Wall because it was over so quickly. But he was, I believe he's also the match admin. Yeah, that's match admin. So that's pretty cool. Thanks, Jujic, for adminning the match and watching this like cool game on Saberhand where, you know, like, oh, Pronogo made this, ported this map from that guy Minerals who makes a lot of maps from StarCraft 1. That's pretty cool. Hey, I guess I'll just take a look at it and see what happens on my map because that'll be cool too, right? And then it's just absolute insanity. Perfect. Exactly what we need. But what it actually means for Grass Eater is his 6-pool didn't work. I mean, how does he win a series if he doesn't win a 6-pool game? I guess the answer is he's going to win a 6-pool game later, probably. That's probably what that means. Going Larvosk first here is a little bit out of character for him, but he's going to start stacking up the minerals necessary to go for a pool soon. I don't think he's going to do Den first, at the very least. That feels like it would take a little bit too long to handle the Askosi micro, the Askosi military moving across the map, even if they go function first, or maybe especially if they go function first. So there's the pool. I was just thinking about how fast roves are to get across the map, and how you can, if you have like more than one or any other unit with them, you can do the micro trick where they speed up and stuff. So the pool is about a quarter of the way complete. We got our first missionary coming out the pike, and yeah, the radixes are being, or the single radix extra, being power built. So fairly standard opening game here so far of Game 3. Maybe both players going back to a more macro-oriented style. I gotta say, another thing that the Gilded Wall warm color recolor makes me think of, where it makes everything a little bit brighter, is it really does remind me how hot it is. But I think I probably feel that way because it's so hot and not because I was just looking at warm colors. Just, I'm coping. I'm looking for a reason to bring it up in the middle of the cast because I just wanted to complain about it a little bit. It's so hot, it's so warm, and it is Pickle Day. Happy Pickle Day, guys. Appreciate it. I did say it vaguely, ominously at the end of game, what was it? The final match of the Hanmano versus Biddy match that I casted yesterday. It will be Pickle Day tomorrow, and it is. Happy Pickle Day, guys. Zeth's coming out in grand number. Actually, does Biddy have the necessary defense here? I guess he's going to have 6 missionaries pretty soon, so that should be enough. Chantry will only heal when units are out of combat, but I guess it'll insulate some of his workers, and future missionaries will be cloaked as well. By the way, I've been thinking about reworks to the Chantry. It does feel like it's pretty powerful right now. One of the things I was thinking is that you have to be idle for like 5 seconds before it actually kicks in. Pretty good cancel on the landlock. The missionary's not in position to block that. There's 15 of these Zeths. Chantry helps cloak them all as they start moving backwards. And yeah, this is pretty tight. I mean, these units are kind of stuck. Oh, the Chantry just gets nuked immediately. Kind of expensive there. He can fall back to his Pilgrims in the mineral line. It's a little bit difficult. Now they start to reveal themselves. Yeah, it looks like the Zets will be taken care of. But, I mean, to be honest, that was a lot. That was a lot of dead Askosi stuff. Chantry, at least one Pilgrim. All the two Pilgrims up here in the landlock that got canceled. So now the missionaries do need to move across the map. And another round of Zets gets made, including an Ovaleth for detection. Vorvs, 2 pairs of Quas. We do have the Gauntlet coming, and another landlock, so Godwheat isn't completely out, but I feel like this does trigger like a one-base all-in type response. At the very least, to equalize damage, and then you see what else you can do. I like his positioning on the missionaries. Also, if you only like tickle the missionary once, then you end up with a bit of extra healing from it. This is a territory where you'd really want a Cardinal just to jump to the missionary stack to heal them, so they can be a little bit more of a fighting situation. The Zets are going to come back to crunch the army. You can see that Godwheat's keeping units back at home, paranoid about the potential for an incoming enemy attack. Instead, the Zeth Vorv returns. It's not just Zeth, it's Vorv. That actually makes a huge difference because Vorvs do take longer for the missionaries to kill. The Quas count is way too high down here, so this is going to be a full army wipe without getting that much in form of other kills, and 2 missionaries end up tucking tail and running back. You almost want to like pocket those guys and just try to go for like a timing-based counterattack with those 2, like running in and trying to heckle the workers, split the attention. That's kind of the only asset that you have there, but if you can get them back home, they can contribute to the fight a little bit. He only has 5 over here for now, no static defense, function and radix coming, but he's got to power build that function. I think he really wants to go for like an object or something, maybe for defense, or maybe he wants roves. Hard to say right now. But his Gauntlet is done, and he's going for a Cosmoscope. No Vicar. Instead, he's going Cardinal. Was that a misbuy, or did he intend it? The landlock's likely going to get torn asunder here. Grass Eater falling back for now, even though it's only 9 missionaries. You can deal with that with his army. But he wants to wait for the extra reinforcements, I guess, which, hey, I'm all about. I'm allowing him to do that. He is pretty demonstrably ahead in position. Worker count superior for the Askosi, but you know, the expansion is coming. 12 workers on the way as well to thin the herd, thin the gap rather. Yeah, that's going to be pretty dire. Still no Vicars. I mean, the splash damage is something that you need. The landlock goes down again. First time it was canceled at least, but no such luck this time around. The Cardinals on the front line going to be trying to focus down. We don't have any healing, any abilities coming out from them, so they just go up and smoke almost immediately. Trying to kite backwards, and here's the object. It's such a nightmare for the Quas to try to kill this, but honestly, I feel like Grass Eater almost could. That's how positionally ahead he was. But, you know, we did a good job stutter stepping back and killing the front line. Shroud coming down. We've got all those workers mining at the natural, 4 extra minerals. Another round of 12 workers. The reinforcements coalescing up here, and they're just going to keep kind of containing Godwheat. There's a good soft containment. A tirade on the way. Not a bad idea. Oh man, Pilgrim's getting shellacked immediately. They run back to the protection of the object, but it's not as good as it could have been. Where 2 of them end up falling right in front. Shroud almost complete. Draw that cycle in back to saturate the main base. These guys will go on the gas out here, it looks like, or at least the ridge. Yeah, because the geyser was already taken care of. Yeah, and the ridge gets garrisoned up here as well. Double Agroleth. 9 pairs of Quas. The Shroud is pretty weak to air, and I think Godwheat already has realized that that would be the likely follow-up. He's once again going to try the expansion. The 3rd time's the charm. Some of these lucky Pilgrims still cloaked from the Chantry earlier, but it's been long since destroyed. A monument to Wheat's failure to protect his homies. His Askosi-mies. His Askomies. I don't know. I'll workshop that one. 8 Lakes, 1 Zorius. He is making a pair of Naths. That's not going to be enough to clear a tirade stack, but or even like 1 tirade, I don't think. But, you know, it's about sending a message. I think these Naths are more harassment-oriented, offensively so. You can see they're waypointing towards some part of the map. Yeah, it looks like they're going to be watching for like any sort of attack opportunity, any drops or what have you. But no anti-air units, so 3 tirades are the move out. Oh man, is he going to end up revealing his position? They're on attack move. Yeah, the Nath does spot that. But oh, it doesn't look like Grass Eater panned his camera over. If he starts making, you know, more claws or something, these 3 pairs don't really count to the same degree, but the tirades end up threading the needle somehow. Nat's poking in, seeing it's Vespian harvest time. 1 tirade is revealed. The ground army is moving across. This is a pretty big issue for Godwheat because his ground army was moving across too, and he just doesn't have the military move-out time right now. He needs to sit back at his natural and reestablish a sort of power play and, you know, try to move out with good game sense here. 3 tirades forcing a burrow on everything. He can pick Larvosks at the very least. That can be something he does. Ground army once again getting heckled quite a bit. The object will be going down. Keep that Larvosk selected. Nats come back home, but they get cleaned. Oh, they were being... Actually, that's not what they were doing. They were being made. Now, when the tirades are killed... Oh, he was getting decollided a little bit. That's funny. When the tirades get killed, they do a lot of splash damage. They multi-target everything, basically, but it was not to be, apparently. And that's the ground army wiped as well. This is not looking too good. Oh, these weren't even on attack moves, so they don't even defend themselves on the way back. And that's all of the ground units for Godwheat take cleaned up as well. The last of the tirade here to try to deal with the lake is, but I don't think it's going to happen, man. This game's a wash. Godwheat needs to be going back to the drawing book, apparently. The drawing board, rather. You draw in a book sometimes. That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. The landlock goes down for the 3rd time. He's trying to make a grandstand on the high ground. The Vickers come out way too late, it feels like, for the rest of the army. Can't even kill the Ovoleth on the way out the door. Look at all the Lakers, too. 9 of the suckers. Feels like, I don't even know if any of them died in the earlier fight. There's a 10th one up here at the ramp. Some of your structure's going to go down. Askosi structure is notorious for being pretty weak in terms of durability. And I think Godwheat just can't quite believe that his back is so much against the wall, and Grass Eater is 1 game away from winning a series against him. Grass Eater is 1 game away from the Battlement stage after this finishes up. Askosi, more like a Scopesy. Get out of here. Zori's coming in. We got more units streaming in. I mean, at least Grass Eater's having some fun being like AI. Sort of like pretending he's a computer player, you know? He's like, yeah, I'll just keep sending units across to attack until my opponent leaves the game. All of the structures being torn asunder. GG. Grass Eater wins, and we need 1 more Zerg victory here for another one of them to join the fray. Guys, I am very surprised. I did think that there was a bit of a gulf between seed number 2 and seed number 3, but Wheat has been a little bit out of practice. He has taken a little bit of time to get here. So I'm hoping that he can maybe activate his old self. It's not like I was live streaming these games. Why has he got a choke like that? Let's find out what happens in the next match, because it could be our last one today. We go to Macroglia for what might be our final match here, and it is going to be an interesting one. This is a Biddy B map. Biddy B also partaking in this tournament, trying to have a last-ditch effort to qualify into Acropolis Battlement stage. Pretty early radix once again for Godwheat. It only costs 100 minerals, so it's pretty easy to make. It does take a little bit of extra time, so, you know, you lose out on some economy from your worker. I'm not sure what people would consider that as far as like how expensive it actually is. Probably you would need to like math out how much money you can make in the build time of the radix, and then add that to the cost of the radix. But hey man, just do it. Just make it. Maybe a function follow-up? I'm not entirely sure. Yes, indeed it is. So, radix and function coming up here for Godwheat. We did see him open function radix on Saberhand, game 1. And that was a game where he looked fairly competitive until the backdulls came out. He didn't quite get his tier 2 ducks in a row. Maybe his Iconoclast deck could have actually done a lot more damage if it was used as a harassment tool, but by that point his ground army needed a lot of reinforcing. And he did put in a lot of resources into triple Astrolabe, making tons of icons. So, just saying that is a requirement of that particular build order. And Grass Eater is going to be going for a Larvosk into pool. I feel like this is a kind of a dangerous pool placement, but that's all right. I suppose that's fine. What was our last map even? We did Saberhand and then into Gilded Wall, into Potadia. So we're now doing back-to-back Biddy B maps. And just for those curious, because sometimes it does come up Knife's Edge. No, wait, no, that's not true. What is our decider? Our decider would be Magnetron, but Godwheat would need to win another match here, and I don't see him getting a grandstand into this man's base, not on this map. By the way, you can cloak your Pilgrim with a Chantry and walk in somewhere, but when you start building, it does reveal your worker. So, I guess like what the Giga Chad strat, the Giga Brain strat is you come in here cloaked, build a Chantry way out of their detection range, then get your Pilgrim to start a grandstand and like sort of daisy chain it, but still in the range of the Chantry so that your Pilgrim recloaks after its move. Also, I don't know if Grass Eater intended to scout over there as I was talking about that, but that was really funny. Going to be going for extra Larvosks here. A pretty quick Vornath from him, so he's trying a bit of a different style, so far as I can tell. And it looks like it'll be a little bit of Missionary Open, but then into Rove Cardinal? I'm curious about this strategy. They can both jump to each other, so it could be a micro-intensive strat. Zeth's roving across the map, funnily enough, and only one of them is going to walk in here to reveal the comp. Looks like the others are going to try to wait for an opportunity to run by. Maybe they'll make some Vorvs. Ends up burrowing the Zeth after taking an initial few shots, and yeah, making a bunch of Vorvs out in the middle of the map. I guess it could be pretty dire for Godwheat if he like moves halfway across the map and then, you know, does his thing. But I actually don't know when he wants to do that. So instead, Grass Eater gonna come on down, see if he can't infiltrate the natural. I don't think this is an army that actually fights what Godwheat has, but he's going to give it a go. The Cardinals are providing a lot of static healing here, a lot of consistent healing with their attacks because it's up against melee. Now they're all kind of clumped up on top of each other, but not very many Askosi units going down, and an object comes out for good measure, making damn sure none of that's going anywhere. A little bit of extra money for Godwheat, and his Pilgrim is on the low ground. So the first fight goes the way of the Askosi pretty obviously and completely. And Vornath not providing too much value just yet. Pilgrim moving over to expand. Only 250 minerals for the landlock, but Godwheat spends a few more minerals on some combat units. More Cardinals. More objects. Man, is this like the version, like the Askosi version of the Clarion Shield, like Clarion Herald Amaranth composition or something? I don't know. Some kind of wacky shield stack. Like, yes, the object shields me from damage, and the Cardinals heal it. There's the jump to try to help with the engagement. One Rove going down. I think the Rove can do 2 jumps before it needs to recharge energy, or maybe it's like 75 energy, so it needs a little bit of a recharge before it can do anything else. I like that the Zethicores were pinched off. They're probably not going to help out too much in the fight here. I also like the dealing damage to the extremity units. But what else do we have? Some circuits are not even close to being done yet. Tries to go after that Rove, and it just cycles back to the rest of the units. Here come the Zeths trying to come in on what they can do. Even then, the Pilgrim saved by the Cardinal. Pretty interesting. Object trying to help force its way into this position. Yeah, taking up too much damage. The first circuit goes down. None of these units have armor, so the claws are going to be fodder for the missionary attacks. And they just can't break through the objects, man. It's too much armor. It's too much shielding. GG, Grass Eater gets owned here on Macroglia. A very quick game. And that means we will have to go to Magnetron for our decider. I am going to say it, guys. Godwheat could have found a composition and a timing, but if the circuits were a little bit earlier, I think he would have held with all those quads. And if Grass Eater didn't end up losing all of those units with the Zeth-Vorv combo, he probably would have had enough fodder to keep things delayed a little bit longer. Maybe get a cheeky surround or maybe get a run by. Tactically, maybe not the best choice to just walk in with them, face check the ramp all by himself with only all of those units. Interested to see what happens in our final game. Let's get to it. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, and we have some fast gas here for Godwheat in the top right, who appears to be a very dark color indeed. Cordovan Askosi. Yeah, it's going to be hard to read on that minimap. I apologize, guys. Maybe I can do this, but then you have to remember that this Tensender in the middle is not Grass Eater. Grass Eater in the bottom left is our Midnight Green Zerg. And he will be going for Larvoskin to pool open. Radix as the start for Godwheat in the top right. I suppose this could be a fine option, but I am predicting here that it's going to be a little bit different. This is not going to go the same way as the last game. I don't think Grass Eater is going to go for Larvosk pool, Zeth, Vorv move out, you know, getting the Vornath. I could be wrong. I have been in the past about grass. Most notably, I've been wrong about him having 10 billion IDs. I didn't know that. Then I did. And then I wished I didn't know that. Here comes the pool. No, another Kagrant? But he's not even harvesting Vespine. What? Oh dear. 40 degrees Celsius. Wait, why did it... Grass Eater, what are you doing? What? Dude, I don't know what happened. I think we caught an error. I think we caught like a misfire or something. There's the pool. That's definitely what this was supposed to be, but maybe, you know, it's game 5. Grass Eater's 6 pool didn't work. He actually has not done a 6 pool since then. That's wild. That is wild. I feel like the way that the radixes, the function, everything's ramping up here, a third radix, 4th production structure. Godweight's actually operating on a 1-base attack. He has not gone for his landlock. I feel like he normally does a little bit before he gets stuff like the extra production structure. So he is choosing to stick it out on the 4 prod for now. Later pool, 2nd Larvosk. Could this be the game? Could this be the chosen time for Godweight to punch his ticket in? Getting all the units that he needs. He'll probably go for 1 more Rove and then into an object after that. But no, he actually just goes for the object directly. Rove Cardinal with some missionaries in the front. That's, I don't know, there's something kind of neat about that. Power building the 3rd radix. My guess is it's going to be, you know, switch it to Vickers fairly early on. But again, there's no moves for an expansion, right? He's not saving up any money for it. Just keeping his military spending going. Scaling up his worker count a little bit later than he typically does, adding another missionary. His function is idle right now. Got his object waiting on it. Yeah, versus the Zeths and stuff, the Cardinals are pretty good. Versus the Quas, I'm not so sure quite as well. Here comes an Agroleth to expand. Grass Eater adding his 3rd Larvos. He's going to have four larva producers, and he's going to put down the hatch soon. So, that's pretty neat. Just thinking a little bit about how this composition is going to compete with what Grass Eater seems to be making, which is just a whole lot of pool units. Got a lot of Quas, got some Zeths that are hatching, but no Vornath. No other tech. I'm guessing he's waiting for Shroud. He's got the money almost. 1 HP Quas. It'll be popped by the missionary when the cliff advantage kicks in. Zeth's rotating around. Maybe this time the counterattack will do some good, particularly since Godweight's about to get his expansion up. Only have a few units here to defend. Pilgrim could at least be sniped. You know, like you're fighting against Terran. Oh man, it's wounded too. From that 1 Quas attack, probably. He burrows a bunch of Quas off to the side here. He's got some on dancing on this side. Oh no, he's going to burrow everything. This could bait him in, especially since he's under attack over here. Kills 2 Pilgrims and forces a cancel on the landlock. Oh, it did look like it got canceled, but the burrow actually wasn't in effect. Remember what we said earlier about those objects too. They soak up some damage, and the Cardinals keep healing them too. Hold on. While he's up to one side, one of the objects has been felled. It now has even more armor. The Zeths moving up here to try to get some more damage dealt, but they don't kill a single Askosi unit. And now the hatch down here is forfeit. 1 Circuit on the high ground does not an effective defense make. Maybe extending away from the object. It's getting a little bit path blocked here. Big focus on the Quas to try to pick apart these Cardinals so that they stop giving up so much healing over. It's kind of outrageous how much healing they're giving with the objects as well. It's really, really cool. Quas coming, 6 pairs of them. Another Circuit maybe going to be made out of here. I don't know. Godweed looks like he's about ready to finish the job. But this one ends up remorphing. Remember, there's no extra static defense over here, or no extra units. He pops every Larvosk. The object's slowly being chipped away at by that Circuit. Can't quite reach the rest of the combat units. Some more units have arrived from Godweed, but I don't really think he's going to have much more success against the Quas. Remorphs all these into Larvosk to try to catch up that timing, and down will the Cardinal go. Man, if he had a Vicar here to pull the object up the ramp, and he could maybe keep sieging, but We actually don't have a tech structure, and we don't have an expansion either. Wheat in a precarious position. He hasn't finished knocking this hatch down, and he might not be able to. He needs to fight around that object so that it doesn't just get picked away at, chipped away at by the quads for free, but he's not doing it. He's just deciding he's going to focus down the hatch, but he doesn't have the armor pen, and now he doesn't have the object to defend against the quads menace. All of a sudden, a huge turnaround, and the shroud completed means 3 Zoryus, 2 Lake is on the way. The hatch still alive for that armor generation. Object gets its ground, taken. Its legs gone. Rooted in place. It's found its new home, maybe a permanent one, maybe where it'll take a dirt nap. Another object with the army. Creating space here for the Askosi. Needs to get his units pumped up around that bad boy, and yeah, you can see how much the fight turns there. Now he can get the object right on top of the Lakers and focus it down. Yes, indeed he can. But it does cause the object to be fully committed. The hatch will go down. That's progress for Godwheat. Circuit's still up here. Does he have another object to come down? No. At least not yet. No further objects on the way, and he can't pull these units up. He has no Vicars. He has no Inkblots to hijack them, to get them reactivated. Still has no expansion. Still stuck on the 20 worker count. And definitely going to be lacking armor pen. The Robes can do okay versus the Zoryus, but he needs to get pops onto these Lakers. One of them goes down. The other one's still spining everything that it can. Finally, that object from deployed will be going down, but all these units struggling to break the Zoryus. No focus fire from Godwheat, trying to fall back to this object, which is a good move. But it will be sundered nonetheless, and he doesn't even trade it for any of the Zoryus that have been creating so many problems for him. He's got 1 more Zoryus to clear, then maybe he can finish that Lake is off, but we got more of those being made as we speak. 3 more about to pop. Grandstands at the front. No expansion. Still a Cypher coming clearly for the Mimic. Maybe Scepter as well. I don't know. This is not looking as good as maybe it ought to for Wheat. I really thought he was going to muscle through and win, but the play with the objects, the focus fire, they're playing around them on both sides. Definitely helping out. That Zoryus face check is a grass special. Not going to work out for him whatsoever. Now the cliff advantage being jockeyed for. Cardinals standing their ground, but I think that's a little bit too much. Gauntlet starts behind this. A Cosmoscope starts behind this, so the Askosi are going to have air units. They're also going to have access to the Vicars pretty soon. But the Cypher's not even quite done yet. No Dyads. Nothing of the sort. No extra landlock either. Here comes the Zoryus. Once again, trying to force its way up here. No detection available yet because that Cypher isn't quite finished. Falls back to the grandstands. He can set one of them into the detector mode. In fact, maybe they're both there. Yeah, they are both set to the detector mode. They don't both need to be. One of them could be shooty. In fact, probably should be shooty. Object here to try to defend. Pretty wounded already. You can see him trying to get close enough to shoot down the Lakers. He does end up popping one of them, but there's so many more where that came from. All the Askosi units, they're all getting shellacked. They're all getting split apart. He doesn't have hardly any more military in production. In fact, he has nothing else in production, just Cardinals and a single Rove. I think it's clear, ladies and gentlemen, he is out of options. We'll switch back to the colors that we truly see, because I think this game has come to a close. He's got more units coming out, but we've seen this story before on Patadia, on Saberhand. The Zerg is at the door and well past it at this point. They're in the kitchen making themselves a sandwich made out of grass and wheat. Grass Eater is going to make it into battlements. There's no way Godwheat can stop this now. He pops a single one of those Lakers, and he must concede. His Mimics have nothing to emulate the attack of. He's down to his last 10 workers and falling. GG. Grass Eater, welcome to battlements. For the first time after several tries, the man has arrived. Well, I really wasn't expecting that. I thought, like, you know, okay, he's actually on qualification point, but he was like that versus Sausage as well, and it didn't quite work out for him, so fair enough. But yeah, I mean, Grass Eater, he makes it happen. He makes it in, and I'm just really proud of the guy. Godwheat gave it a good go. Seems to struggle versus Zerg in a way that I am told other Askosis are not. I'm really interested in seeing what he can do. I mean, maybe it's Shopkeeper Dog who will show us that this is an OP race. But you know, Godwheat's just happy to be here. I don't know. But that does mean that he falls into the lower bracket. So filling that out off screen here for a moment, I will confirm to you guys that that means that we have Grass Eater qualifying, and the Godwheat here is going to face off against Saint Aquinas, who is Zerg and Askosi. If Godwheat ends up rolling the Askosi mirror, maybe he can do a little bit better. If it's against the Zerg, I don't know. We'll have to see if the style ends up working well for Saint. Either way, we'll be casting that best of 5 next, followed by the Zerg versus Zerg, Biddy B versus George match, which is going to be very interesting indeed. The loser of those 2 matches will face off against each other in the last chance qualifier. So we are 3 series away from deciding the final participants of the Battlement stage of Acropolis number 4. Thank you for joining us. Gauntlet Stage B coverage continues tomorrow. Subscribe if you're not already. I'll see you then. Peace.